Is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Heather Turner.
Great. Thank you very much, Kamal. So my name is Heather Turner, and I am the District 53 Social Media Chair, and we are doing a webinar series on helping Toastmasters clubs with PR. We are recording this session, and it will be available on the District 53 website and in other places, hopefully by tomorrow, if not sooner, or maybe at least by this weekend. So we are recording this, as I stated. If you do have any questions, there is a question and chat bar to the right of your screen, and please ask the questions as you have them, and I will try to address them as we go through things. Now I'm going to kind of start off quickly with some slides, and then I'll go to the live internet, and hopefully it doesn't glitch too much. And I want to touch on something that is a personal pet peeve for me in my district, and I find that it's kind of a pet peeve for a lot of other district trios and people like PROs and other club leadership, area directors, division directors, is that people are not updating the Find a Club information. And this is really relevant because if you don't yet have a Toastmasters FreeToastHost site and you don't have a website listed, that information is not going to be there. Toastmasters International website and the FreeToastHost websites are not connected. So even if you have a website through FreeToastHost, the Toastmasters International website does not have this information until you actually go in there and put that information in there. Now, once you've done that, and I'm going to touch briefly on how to go there and where to go and what to do, make sure the website link works, because I've seen a lot of website links on the Toastmasters International website where the link actually isn't in there properly, so it goes to a page not found. The other thing to think about is a lot of times when officers change over, the email a club address does not get updated. Now, this is so important because usually the very first place that people go to find a Toastmasters club is they don't generally find a club website first. They go to the Toastmasters International website and they find a club on there. And if your meeting information is incorrect, your website information is incorrect, and especially if your contact information is incorrect, they're not going to find you and they're not going to be able to make a connection with you. So that's so important to make sure that that's updated. Now, in order to update that information, you're going to log into Toastmasters International and go into Club Central, and then you'll go down to Club Contact and Meeting Information, and you'll update it in there. I'm also going to touch briefly on corporate club websites versus community club websites. Now, the club website that we're going to be using as a demo today is actually for a corporate club. Now, I've talked to a lot of corporate clubs who don't feel the need to have a corporate club website, but you have to think about it from the perspective that you will have Toastmasters members that are looking for club information while they're not at work. So being able to have information that's accessible, like an agenda that they can fill out while they're home or in their home office, can be very effective. And also, if you have new employees possibly coming to your club or other people from maybe you work for Travelers International, for example, which is a big insurance company, and you're going from office to office and you want to find out if the local Travelers office has a corporate club that you can visit, it's helpful to people looking for those things to be able to search them publicly. So just because you're a corporate club doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't have a website, especially if the corporation allows you to do that. It is still great advertising to have that out there. Now, when you first get a FreeToastHost site, and it used to be FreeToastHost 1 was the very first incarnation of FreeToastHost, and recently it was FreeToastHost 2, and I actually just found this out this week after we had put this information out there that is now FreeToastHost 3, and that new update rolled out at the beginning of November, so just literally about a week ago. When you first sign up for this, this is what the standard website looks like. This is information, and we'll go over this when I go to the live version of it, but this is the standard interface that you are going to have that you can customize a bit. And when you're thinking about doing your website, it does give you a lot of options to put colors in there, to put a background in there, to put different text in, to put photos in, but you have to kind of not look at it from the perspective of your club. This is an advertising tool, and you need to use it as an advertising tool. So looking at this from an exterior standpoint, i.e. a possible guest wanting to look at this club, the first thing that I see is this is very bright, which is nice to see bright colors, but it's also extremely hard to read. And there's no happy smiling people here. There's some great text, but it's in Comic Sans, which is not necessarily recommended from a professional standpoint. But it does have some good points on it, but it is very hard to read. Look at this again. From the perspective of a guest looking at this page, it has information out there. It's got the where and the when, but there's some inconsistencies in here with some HTML, which is kind of the coding language that they put in for a follow button for Twitter. So it also doesn't look professional. So you really need to kind of take this out of the box and again, look at it from the standpoint of someone looking at your page for the first time. Here's another one. It's a bit hard to read. These are hot links, and you can't really read those easily. So it does give you information about it. It's, it being happy, congratulations are in order. It's thanking a member of the club. But again, it is difficult to read this. And you really have to think about the perspective of the fact that we have members of all ages in Toastmasters that are guests coming to Toastmasters of all ages. I'm only in my late 40s, but I have bifocals, and for me, I actually have to come right up to the screen and squint at this. There's also a percentage of the population that have red and green blindness. So if you have text that's hard to read on a darker surface or on a lighter surface, you also have to take that into account. So that actually falls under something called ADA website accessibility, which is a whole nother session that we probably need to do for Toastmasters at some point. But hyperlinks in general should be on a white background, and they should be in bright blue like this is, but they should also be underlined so people know that they are a hyperlink. When you look at club websites and when you're redesigning your club website or designing your club website for the first time, what I'd really recommend you do is go onto Toastmasters International and start looking at other Toastmasters websites. Make a list, document it somewhere in an Excel spreadsheet or a Microsoft Word document, the club websites that you like, near, far, international. What do you like about them? And again, look at it from the perspective of a potential guest. If you were a guest looking at this club website, was there something about this that maybe did or did not draw you into this? Now, this kind of website, for example, is a little bit busy on the top. It doesn't tell me right off the bat where they meet. So they meet in South Main Street, Middleton, Mass, but when? When do they meet? Is there contact information? When people go on websites, there's something called a bounce rate. And a bounce rate means somebody goes to your website, they don't find the information they need or are looking for within a short period of time, and they bounce away. So they go somewhere else to look for things. So you also want to make sure that people don't have to scroll down. So this, for example, welcome to this fun club. It's got a nice little picture of it, but you'd have to actually scroll down to find contact information about it and when they actually meet. It's giving you where, but not when. And people hate to scroll down. So you want to try to make sure that all of your pertinent information is in this area as much as humanly possible. Now, here's an example of a picture that to me is a little puzzling. And it's great. It's got the Toastmasters banner in it, but there's no people there. So as a potential guest looking at this, I'd look at this picture and go, there's an empty room with nobody in it. I'm puzzled. What do they do? Do they meet? I guess you can kind of draw your own conclusions from that one. Here's another one. It's got text. It's got the time. Where is it? Come be our guest. You actually have to go somewhere else to find specific meeting information directions for this. So again, try to think of containing all of this pertinent information in here, because people really do not tend to click over here. Sometimes if they're poking around on it, they will, but many times they won't. This is one that has information in it. And you have to, again, think of again for the perspective of a guest looking at this. This is great that it's got the time, or it actually does not have the time up here. It has the time here and the place and the directions and the dates, which is great. But if people are not knowing what a President's Distinguished chapter of Toastmasters International really is, this may not mean anything to them. If you want to elaborate on it and explain that to people, that's great. Because think about how many people coming to Toastmasters for the first time had only really heard of Toastmasters. They've never heard of the Competent Communicator Manual. They've never heard of Pathways. They've never heard of any of this stuff at all. So if you put information like this on there, try to put somewhere, at least on the homepage or somewhere else, what that particular information is and how it kind of relates to people seeing this for the very first time. This is something that kind of drives me a little bit crazy, is outdated dates on something. This is actually a snapshot that I took about a year later. They obviously had not updated their website in quite a while. It was a very active club. If you looked at their Facebook page, they were actually posting a couple of times a week. And blurry photos, this could be a fun photo. It just needed to be sharpened up a bit. Again, think of it from the perspective of someone looking at this for the first time, because this boils down to marketing. If I'm a buyer, so I'm a potential guest coming to the club, and I look at this, and this is a year later, or actually more than a year later in this case, and I look at the date and I think, wow, they really are not paying attention to their club and their marketing. How good is this club? It is very much like a business because you're selling the club to potential members. Charter date, great. Now, the reason I bring this up is when someone says charter date, again, if you don't know Toastmasters lingo, what is a charter date? To me, looking at this for the first time, if I didn't know what a charter date was, I would think that the last time this page had been updated was in 2013. Also, these are for members, or are they? The website on the homepage is not for members, they're for guests. So information about club notices, announcements, and contests, and club awards and dashboard, this means nothing. So you're taking up valuable kind of marketing space on the front page of your website. Not to saying don't put that information on the website, but don't put it on the first page because it's not relevant to a guest looking at it. Now, here's an example. This is actually one of my clubs where you kind of have to cram as much as you can into this. So it's giving you when it is, what time it is, how to contact us, upcoming meeting dates, and then where the meetings are actually held. So you don't actually have to scroll down for it. We have Google Analytics in this page, and I have Google Analytics access to a couple of other websites that do not have that information up front and center. And when I look at the bounce rates for this particular website versus those websites, our bounce rate for this web page is about 17%, which is actually pretty good for a Toastmasters website. Their bounce rates are 60 to 90%. So just to give you an example of how that draws people to the website and attracts them to information. We also get a lot of visitors that go from the Toastmasters International website to this website, and the first place they actually go, they don't go here to contact us. They email us from that link because that one actually goes directly to our VP of membership. Here's another one, happy smiling people. We have some branding going on here. We've got what, where, when, guests are always welcome. The only one that I would suggest on this one is a contact us information, a phone number and email on this side, because people do not generally look at the links over here. Happy smiling people again. No contact information though, so they kind of got the right idea, but missed out a little bit on that one. Now, videos are a great idea to put on the homepage. I wouldn't necessarily put them up front and center. They might be something that you can put so that if this was the very top of the page on the internet, people would scroll down and they'd see the top of the video here and they'd scroll down and put it in. Now, video is one of the best marketing tools out there that Toastmasters can use. What I do recommend is you can't upload a video directly to the FreeToastHost sites. You can embed a video from YouTube and you can embed a video from Vimeo. I just want to caution you, if you do put your videos on Vimeo, put them on YouTube as well, especially to embed them. Vimeo videos are much higher resolution and they take up a lot more bandwidth. I have high-speed internet, and I was actually on a Toastmasters FreeToastHost website that had a Vimeo video embedded in it, and it took about 5 minutes for the page to load up. So if I hadn't been actually really wanting to see that video, I would have clicked away from it. So you also want to think about loading time and page speed in terms of what you're putting internally into that website. Now, membership information is something that most people actually will not go over to. When I look at the analytics from the sites that I have access to, this kind of information is more valuable for search engine optimization, so it does help SEO a little bit. FreeToastHost websites are not the best for search engine optimization. They do help a little bit, but this information is very good so that if a member or a potential member emails you or calls you, you can actually just grab this page link, you can grab the URL, and then you can email it to them instead of actually having to, type this all in again or cut and paste, which isn't as professional looking, because this helps drag people to the website if they have not yet been there. But having that kind of information in there is very useful. Just make sure that if you change things, you change your dues, for example, or you change officers, or you have that kind of information, just make sure and make a note of it when you have officer changeover that you keep it up to date. Frequently asked questions is another one. This is actually one that we do find a lot of people tend to touch on, and they do seem to actually read it from the amount of time that I've seen they spend on the page itself. Depending on whether you want to take text directly from the Toastmasters International site, you want to write your own. I've seen some terrific examples of club websites really getting into some detail about how a club meeting runs. They've also embedded some videos of, a bunch of the club members doing table topics or someone giving a speech and an evaluation so that people can actually see examples of how the club meetings actually run themselves. Now, club contact information is something that some people unfortunately don't ever put in there. I'll show you in a little bit when we get into that live section, and they don't update it. And from a marketing perspective, again, getting guests into the door, if you have old officer information in here, your VPM, for example, maybe is no longer part of your club, or they've changed over, they're not as involved in the club. If someone calls them or emails them and they're not going to reply, the person reaching out to your club is fearful in the first place. Most of them, when they first come into the club environment, they're petrified. They came because they're scared of public speaking. A lot of times they need to build up their self-confidence. They're generally only going to try that touch point once. And if they can't get hold of someone that's going to get back to them right away, you're kind of shooting yourself, unfortunately, in the foot with that one a little bit. Now, you can also helpfully take pictures of it. So one of my clubs meets at the town hall. So we have a picture of where they go in the entrance, because there's actually 8 entrances into this town hall. And you can also embed a Google map into it, which is also helpful. So if somebody wants to find the club easily, you can actually just click right into that. And that Google map, I'll show you how you can embed that into the website itself. If you have specifics, one of the clubs I was working with a few years ago had a very interesting meeting location where you had to walk through a bunch of doors, and the Google Maps location, unfortunately, we could not get it fixed. So the Google Maps location itself, when you put the address in, actually showed 2 buildings down of this big priory that the meetings were held in. So people used to come before we put this map online and before we started sending this to new guests saying, please look at this map to show you where to go. People were showing up for the meeting, and some of them were waiting for half an hour or more for the clubs, and they had completely the wrong place to go. So we tried to fix that as much as possible. Now, when you have your members, try to encourage them to fill out their profiles, to add pictures online. There is the ability to do that in FreeToastHost. And again, I'm probably sick of you guys are sick of me saying this already, but again, think of this from the potential of a guest looking at this. Merrimack Toastmasters, when I last looked at this and I took the screenshot of this website, had about 18 members. And when I looked at the website, I see 1 member. So I only know they have 18 members because I talk to them, but when I'm a potential guest looking at this, it doesn't look like an active club. Even having their names in there is helpful, but having descriptions and having photos brings a lot more of a personal touch into having membership attractions. So if I can go to a website, for example, and see, wow, they have 17 members and maybe 15 have made their profiles public, and here's some social media links that people can reach out to us and contact us through, and there's some descriptions of who they are and what kind of backgrounds they did. For a guest, it gives a little bit more of a kind of a relaxation in terms of they're not walking into this blind. So they can go into this meeting and say, hey, our vice president of membership is Brian David Crawford, and they can identify that person as someone they can put a name to the face with right away before they walk into this. Now, does anybody have any questions on this perspective, this port of it, before I move into kind of the live version of this? And Kamal, do you have anything that you want to throw in and add to this? Hopefully he's still on.
Yeah, I'm here. No, it's a great introduction, Heather. I think we are going in the right direction. I'm sure everyone who is part of this webinar is gaining a lot of valuable information, as I am, actually.
Okay. All right. So let me move on to this one. And I'm actually just going to bring up the very first place when you have either started your club website or started to kind of think about updating it a little bit is please make sure you go to Toastmasters International and make sure the information on there is right. That's very easy to get into. You're going to go into Leadership Central, into Club Central, and then update your club information. But also try to contact the club. Make sure, again, that it's correct in there, because this is going to be definitely your first point of contact between your potential guests and hopefully more new members. Okay, so I am going to bring up the club we are going to use as a demo. And here we have the Fun Basics site. And if you do not yet have a club website, you can actually just go and Google FreeToastHost, and you can request a club website. You're basically just going to give them their name, your email address, and what club. They have a list of all of the clubs through Toastmasters International, even though the two are not connected with each other. And they'll basically, it usually does less than 48 hours, they will actually send you access information to the club itself. And this is free. Again, it is not connected, though, to Toastmasters International. One of the things that I run into quite often is someone will add a member in Toastmasters International site, but that information needs to be added separately to the FreeToastHost site because they don't talk to each other, because they're two separate things. Toastmasters International actually has nothing to do with the FreeToastHost sites. This is all run by a team of volunteers, and it's free, so you can't complain about free. So when you get this, you're going to log in as the site administrator, not as a member, and I have the information saved in here. So if you'll just be patient with me while it's logging in. And if you ever do lose your password as the site administrator, it will let you reset it. It will also let you reset it as a member. Now, at first, this won't look very different, except for the fact you can see a little icon up here that has a pencil, and you can either edit the pages through that, or you can go here, which is the Launch Admin Console. And this is kind of home base for where all of the back end of the information is. And it's a little disconcerting when you see this for the first time because there's a lot of fields to fill out. The one thing that I would reassure people is when you first log into this, or if you really haven't played around with this at all, you can't break this. I have tried to break this many times, and if I can't break it, just like Pathways, I've tried to break Pathways and I can't quite break it yet. The FreeToastHost site is pretty bulletproof, and the nice thing about this is if you put something in here or you make a mistake, it's very easy to edit it, so it's not the end of the world. Now, what I would recommend when you go on this and customize this, or customize it if you already have the website itself, go through here tab by tab and just check all of this out. So you'll have your club name, your description. Now, keywords are important because you're going to want to put things like Toastmasters in there, obviously, and put them with commas. And you don't want to do something called keyword stuffing. Keyword stuffing is having 100 keywords or keyword phrases. That's actually looked at negatively by search engines. What you want to do is put in things that are relevant to Toastmasters, so public speaking, self-confidence, confidence, anything that's relevant to what your club is about. If you want to put in, like you're in Michigan, for example, or you're in Merrill, Wisconsin, you might want to put some keywords about location in there. If you have something special about the club, for example, the club is 30 years old, you can use that as a keyword. You can also put in a website alias. So by default, your Toastmasters club is assigned this, and these are the Toastmasters club up at the top left. This is your club number. You can actually change this. So in this particular case, you can change it to the name of the club, and it will actually come up as First in Speech Toastmasters Club toastmastersclubs.org. You don't have to do this. It doesn't really seem to make any difference, but it looks a lot better on print advertising. And sometimes people find it a lot easier to actually type that in than trying to type the numbers in. You can also register a custom domain name. If you do that, I would recommend GoDaddy as one of probably the less expensive of the domain registrars. But realistically, unless you're using that for something else, go for free. And unless your Toastmasters Club has a big marketing budget and a lot of money in the kitty, I would stay with what you have. Not saying don't do it, but you don't really need to. Okay. Now you can set your club time zone, format, all of this other stuff. I'm not going to go over a lot of that because it's kind of irrelevant at the moment. This is the important part, your appearance. And you can change this at any time. So if you don't like the look and feel of your website itself, you can go in and change it. Now this is going to give you options for text colors for menu links, meet our members. You do want to try to make sure that those are going to be in bright blue. So any links, try to make sure that those are all in bright blue, because this goes into readability. This also goes into being accessible for people with disabilities. Now, website background, there's a lot of different things that you can do with this. The default is kind of this boring gray color. They do give you some colors in here. This blue is actually what looks like a Toastmasters branding color. I think this gold over here is too, and the maroon is. So it's these three colors are actually the standardized branding colors of Toastmasters International, but you can change it to any color that you want. So if you have a particular color code, these are called hex codes too, you can put your own color scheme in here. They also let you upload a background as well if you would like to. But this gives you all these different options. So the public menu here, for example, when you click on a color, this is going to colorize the background of this portion, for example. So social links, the agenda page, all of these different things will let you have different colors as backgrounds. You can play around with the customization as often as you want and just to see, hey, this color combination works really well for me or it doesn't. You can also change the menu text size. I personally like to see this just a little bit bigger because the standard text size on the left is a little bit hard to read. So you can also adjust the margin a little bit, the main margin. Again, play around with this, kind of see what looks good. It's nice that they have more customization. This was not available in the first version of FreeToastHost. They've really come a long way since they first rolled out. The nice thing is they've also come to the fact that FreeToastHost sites are mobile friendly, which they were not before. And that was kind of a big, I shouldn't say a no-no, but it was kind of a no-no in terms of search engine optimization. But also it wasn't that user-friendly for potential guests looking at websites on a mobile phone because they had to drag their fingers kind of across the site to actually get to any pertinent information on it. So this is a lot more user-friendly from a potential guest aspect on a mobile phone itself. You can also upload images if you really want to get fun and crazy with that. Again, play around with that. That one is entirely up to you. This part, the hide menu links, by default, and I'm actually going to close out of this for a minute, and I'm not going to change it. These are default tabs. I don't particularly like these. Some people do. This is going to be entirely up to you and your club whether you want to have these or not. I don't find these particularly user-friendly because unless somebody kind of just starts clicking around on the site, they don't know there's content here. There's no little arrows here, and I've made this suggestion for the FreeToastHost guys a couple of times. I don't know whether they're ever going to do anything with it or not. I would hope so at some point. But think of usability. Are people going to actually click on this and open them up? And if they do, how do they get back? People are going to know, are they going to know that they need to click on that again? So that's something you kind of need to think about. This is the default picture that comes in it. What I've actually done prior to this is taken out some of the text in here because they do have some terrific text and actually pasted it in to the top portion of this. If you decide to keep these, again, that one is completely up to you, but all of this will be pushed down as you add content into this section itself. So I'm going to go back into Launch Admin Console and back into Appearance. And these menu links are all ones that are on the left-hand side. You can also disable all of the members-only features. So there's actually a lot of bells and whistles in the back end of FreeToastHost. You can upload documents to it. You can upload photos to it that are only accessible to members. And you can have a site agenda, for meetings that's actually really, really customizable. It's now printer friendly, which is fantastic. But if you disable this, it also disables that feature of seeing your members. So that has some pros and cons to it. So if you're a corporate page, or if you're a corporate club, for example, and you do want to just use this for marketing, you may not want to have your employees listed on this. So that one is up to you. Before you check all of this, just look at this and see which things are actually being unchecked. The other thing that I found when you're in a FreeToastHost site, when you save this, the one thing that I always make sure that I do is save it a couple of times. Because what seems to happen is the first time you save, especially if you've made quite a few changes to it, it doesn't necessarily always take. So I kind of get anal retentive about this, and I hit save, and I let the little scrolling thing go, and then I hit save again. And then I close it up. And it'll take a minute to update itself. Okay. Now I'm going to go back into Launch Admin Control, and I'm going to go back into the home page. This is something that I think has actually a lot of relationship to Pathways, and seems to be one of the biggest gripes about the Pathways pop-up, is the fact that this space is hideously hard to actually work in. There's a couple of ways to get around this. You can actually expand this over, and you can expand this section itself. So you actually have quite a bit more space to actually work in itself. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to take it out. And when you're using pictures, a lot of people unfortunately do not have Photoshop or don't have a lot of photo editors to work with. So there's some really good free photo editors out there. I'm going to use Pixlr, for example. This happens to be one of my favorites. And I'm just going to bring up a picture, for example, and show you how to upload it, because there's a couple of steps to doing that. So in Pixlr, which is free, there's a very new interface that they've actually just rolled out fairly recently that I really like. It's fun and it's easy to use. So you can just open the photo up. And let's see. Okay, so this is a photo of one of my clubs from a couple of years ago. Now, if I put this full picture into that space, I'm going to be using up and wasting a lot of prime advertising space in this. So for a picture like this, which is a nice picture, what I do is I just crop it. So I'm going to just bring this down a little bit and bring it up and bring it in. Now, Pixlr is nice because you can also put text on top of it or text around it. So if I wanted to make this a little bit bigger, for example, and then add some text on top of it, I could add text to it. And then you can move that around. You can change the color of it. So there's some fun things you can do with Pixlr. You can also sharpen it up a little bit. You can change it to black and white. You can flip it over. So there's some really good simple editing things just in Pixlr itself. There's also Photoshop tools, which unfortunately is now you have to enable Flash to let it run. But if you need some more bells and whistles for photo editing, that is a terrific free one to use. But again, you do have to enable Flash for that one. So I'm going to bring this one down just a little bit more again. And I'm going to save it. And when you're saving a file, this is a fairly large file. You do want the file to be clear, but you want to make sure that it's not taking up a lot of actual physical space, because the bigger the file size, the longer it will take to load on the website, similar to what I was talking about earlier with the videos. So for this quality size photo, I'm going to bring this down a little bit, and it's going to tell me here how much space this one has kind of merged it down to. It's still going to look the same, but the picture itself takes up less memory, if you want to call it that. So I'm going to save that. Now I'm going to go back here. And this particular kind of WYSIWYG editor has a lot of things that most of the time Toastmasters clubs don't use. And there's a quick question that came in that I will answer. Yes, can you please help with how to upload information on the website? I will address that. And our club has 3 links for contact us. Should we just consolidate to 1 link? I will address that later. And can we have a website for division or area? I believe you can have a website for division or area. I have seen them. I've seen them for division and I have seen them for district. I tend to think you can have them for area, but please don't quote me on that. I would have to check. Okay, so I will address the other 2 questions after we kind of mess around with the homepage content just a little bit. Now, if you know HTML, for example, you can actually go in here and this will tell you the source code. So I'll say, hi, everyone, because I'm just playing with us. And if I look at the source code, this is actually going to give me HTML tags. So if you do need HTML, or if you want to edit that at all, that's the easy way to get into the back end of this website. Now, to upload a photo, if you hover over all of these, it will kind of give you a little drop down of what they are. So you're going to go to image. And this is kind of a bit of a couple part thing. So you're going to go to upload first, and then you're going to choose the file. And I'm not quite sure where that picture I saved it to, and I don't particularly want to spend time looking for it, so we're going to use this one. And open. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is send it to the server. And it'll tell you success, it's been sent to the server, so you'll hit OK. And it will always tell you this, which is very odd. You hit OK again, and then when you have this, you'll say Browse Server. And you will pull up the image in your Toastmasters library. And here you have the ability to resize it. So if I wanted to make this smaller, for example, it will automatically resize it. If I wanted to unlock the ratio, so I wanted to make this a different size, I would click Unlock. Now, the border, all the rest of the spaces, these are additional things that you can set around. You can also send the alignment, so left, right, or you can go to center when you're in there. I would also recommend putting in alternative text. Some people actually have their images shut off on websites. It makes for faster browsing. But again, this actually goes into people with disabilities and ADA compliance, is that anytime you upload a picture to a website, it should have alternative text so people with a screen reader can actually read this. So this would be Cromwell Club members. And you don't have to get really into detail when you put the alternative text in, but with someone with a screen reader reading this, they do want to know what that picture is. And then you're going to hit OK, and then it's going to be embedded into this. So there's some additional things you can do with this. So you can treat this like you can move it around like that. This interface is actually a whole lot like Microsoft Word. You can't really mess anything up if you delete something or you add something and it's not working well. Until you hit save and you hit save again, it's not the end of the world. And even if you hit save, you can always go back in here and edit it again. The one thing that I found is if you hit return, it's going to give you an extra space in here. The way to get around that is you hit shift and then enter, and it will actually wrap it right underneath. That's something that's a bit of a quirk of FreeToastHost. But in here, you can go in just like Microsoft Word. You can change the heading. You can change your fonts in here. You can change sizes. You can change text. And I'm sorry if I'm touching on this again, but this is important. If you put text in red or green, again, just be cognizant of people, and there's a lot of them out there that have red-green color blindness. So it's better if you can find things in just black or blue or purple or colors that someone with color blindness can actually see. Okay, so that's kind of pretty much it in terms of that aspect of it. When you go up to here, meeting information and directions, definitely put some details about your meeting information and directions in here. There's also a Google Maps address iframe. So if you take your address, for example, so we're going to take this one and we're going to plug it into Google Maps. So if you find your location in there, and here's the location of this particular club when they meet. So you're going to click on Share, and then you're going to click on Embed a Map. And what this will spit out for you kind of is what's called an iframe. And all you need to do is copy this. So you can either copy it by copying the HTML, or you can click Control-C and bring that information back over here and put it in here. Now you can also change the width and the dimensions of this. So maybe I didn't want to make the Google map that high. So I'm going to change this dimension to 500. So it's going to be a little bit shorter. And then I'm going to click Save and save it again. And I'm also just going to put some text in here really quickly so you'll see where on the page itself that this ends up. All right, so I'll go over to meeting information. And as you can see, there's the embedded map in here. So I hope that helped in terms of that one. So everything in the back end of the website settings is going to be found in this. If you have social media links, all you have to do is put in your Facebook URL, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, any of the other social media links. Google Plus has kind of gone by the wayside, so it's not as relevant anymore. Meetup, if you have a Meetup address, definitely put that in there. If you're on other social media platforms, for example, so maybe you have a Tumblr blog, you can upload the icon for Tumblr and also put in the website link. Make sure those links work too. So after you hit save and the icons go to the left-hand side, definitely click on them and make sure they've gone to the right place. I've seen a lot of FreeToastHost club websites where the social media information is in there erroneously. So I click on Facebook and I don't go to where the club information is actually found. So floater messages is another one. This is something that shows up in the top part of the banner. Definitely play around with that. See what marketing message you want to kind of give to potential guests. Some people put where they service area. So my club in Agawam, Massachusetts, for example, we have at the floating banner at the top of our page, we put we serve the communities of Agawam, Springfield, Suffield, Enfield, Somers, and I think it's another one near us, but we have that in there that so people know that just because we're in Agawam, Massachusetts, we also have people that come from those surrounding areas. That kind of information people actually don't think of intuitively. You kind of have to tell them that. Access settings is important because if you want specific people to be able to add and edit this, there's one main administrative login, but you can also delegate specific portions of the website. So specific people that are officers have specific control of being able to access the new dues tool. That's actually very helpful, and we'll be going over that a bit at the end at the next webinar. Accessing agenda settings, file managers, all of those things, you can only add 3 people to each, which is unfortunately not the best, but until they add additional people, add the people that are really going to use that website and access and change that information. So here's the administrative info. If you ever do lose this, the person that is the administrator, for example, of your website leaves and you can't get back into the website itself and you don't know how to, and that information for the website login is completely gone, so it's connected to an old email address that member had. You can contact FreeToastHost directly, and the volunteers will actually set you up with a new site login. They're very, very quick and very, very helpful about doing that. This is a couple of additional bells and whistles in terms of website statistics. So this is a hit counter. This one is up to you. I personally am not fond of it, but it shows people how many people have actually logged in and accessed the website itself. Bing Webmaster Tools meta tag, most people won't use this. The Google Analytics, though, if you really want to get into how many people are visiting your page, where they're coming from, some more information about potential guests. So like if you're putting up your club information on the local Hartford community events page, and every week you guys spend time to put that information online, and you want to know whether it's actually worth it. So are you getting visits to your website from the time spent for that? Setting up free Google Analytics is quite easy to do. There's a lot of walkthroughs out there, but it's very definitely recommended in terms of finding out where you're spending your time, accessing your marketing and seeing whether you're taking time and getting that time back. So are you getting potential guests from it? Are you getting traffic to your website from it? The About section is just how to contact people, some additional information about updates. They've been actually rolling out quite a few updates to FreeToastHost site recently. So every time you log in as an administrator, there's generally going to be a pop-up saying we've made some additional changes to the website itself. Now I'm going to quickly touch on a couple of things that we're going to go over in the next webinar. But membership management is one of those things. Custom web pages, the file manager, meeting agenda settings, and dues management. Those are all things that we'll be covering next time. We did have the question about how to upload things. So if you want to upload documents, you're going to go into File Manager. And there's some default files in here to upload. Or they're actually, I'm sorry, that are in here already as PDFs. You do not have to keep those. Locked means it's not available to the public. So anytime you upload documents, so say you actually want things to be available to the public, you would click this and the little unlock icon would show up. Just make sure that you save several times. This is a lot like uploading something to email, for example. So you're just going to click upload and then open. And there it is. So it's pretty easy. And this is set as public or set as private. So if I wanted to change it to public, I would just change that and then go to save. And I hope that answered the question in terms of uploading information on the website itself. And then, so our club has 3 links for contact us. Should we just consolidate it to 1 link was the question. And could you please elaborate on has 3 links for contact us? Is there 3 separate emails to contact? If it is 3 separate emails, what I do recommend, and this is especially pertinent to the Find a Club on Toastmasters International, and if you're using social media accounts aside from Facebook itself, setting up a Google Gmail address is very, very helpful, especially when you make the transition from officer team to officer team, because then you can just change the access. You can also have that email forward to a bunch of different people. So if you had, for example, 55234 or maybe a name in front of it at gmail.com, that when someone sends an email looking for information for something, it can actually get forwarded to a bunch of people so they all get it. Okay, so they do have a link to all of the officers. There is actually addresses in the website itself. Let me go in here. I would have to actually log in as a member for this, and I'm not in here as a member, so I can't. But there's actually club email addresses. So if you wanted to use those addresses, there's an address for all of the officers as long as they're in the back end of this website. And there's 2 other group settings. So there's a email address that can be used to email blast to just the officers team. And there's another email address that's also connected to the agenda, but you can use it as a standalone that you can send out a blast to all of the club members at the same time. So that's actually really, really useful. If you want to use those publicly, you can, and you can just consolidate it to 1 primary point of contact. So I hope that answered the question. Okay, that's pretty much it for just the general things. We can get quite a bit more into the other things, but I was hoping to save all of the rest of it for the next kind of webinar that we were going to do on this. So if anybody has any additional question. Okay, and the question that I had the question of was clarified. So my question is, it isn't clear for a visitor to who should be contacted. Okay. my take on this is whoever should be contacted is going to be the person that's going to be the most responsive. That person, unfortunately, is not always the VP of PR. In one of my clubs, the person that's probably the most responsive is our secretary. And when you email her, she's literally on email all the time. She will get back to somebody within literally minutes, unless it's in the middle of the night. Although somebody told me that she did respond to an email at 4 a.m. once. So in terms of who you should list as the point of contact, make it the person or the people that are most likely to get back to people fairly quickly. So I hope that helped a little bit. Okay.
So Heather, Kamal here. So quick question. So that's a very good question, whoever asked. But when we talked about the distribution list, can we list the distribution list as a contact, or should it just be a single person?
The distribution list as a contact, you can't actually put that publicly, because if you're not in the website itself, you'll get a bounce back message. It will say you do not have the authority to email the group. I hope that makes sense.
Yep,
Okay.
That's a good point. Yep. And the other question is, which commonly comes across, and I hope it helps the others too, is who should be the admin for this, FreeToastHost websites? Because it covers VP Education's role, it covers marketing, it covers public relations. So you being the expert, who should be the admin?
That's a fun question. Normally, I would say the VPE and the VP of PR. Realistically, though, if you broke it out into who should really be updating separate sections of this, the VP of PR section, like the front page, should be the VP of PR. The agendas and customizing those should be the VPE. Adding members and making sure that information is correct should be the VPM. And then the dues section should be the treasurer. I know that in most clubs it's generally only one person, so it's whoever is the most feeling tech savvy.
So technically, Heather, there can be more than one admin. Is that accurate?
Yeah, you can have multiple admins. Like the clubs that I'm an admin on, all of the officers for the most part have admin access, and we all try to stay on top of things so that if we forget, for example, to update the next meeting time, one of us, when we're on the website, and we're always on the websites all the time, signing up for agenda roles, will happen to say, hey, it said the past meeting's still up there, we'll just pop in and change it. We know it's the VP of PR's job, but we also are cognizant of the fact that in order to put our finest foot forward to potential guests, we want to make sure the information is as up to date online as often as possible.
Excellent.
Okay.
That's very valuable. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure, absolutely. Now, there is some additional places in here, and I don't know if we will have time, but I think we will for the next version of this to kind of show people how to set up their personal profiles. And I can actually go, let's see, I'll pull up this one, for example, which is one of my clubs. And everybody has a personal profile. As the administrator, you have the ability to make your personal profile public or not public. The administrators of the page, depending on if there's a default setting when people sign up, they can either set, yeah, the administrator can make my profile public for me or not. That one is entirely up to them. I tend to not tell people to do that unless they have a fear of getting found. I know that in one club that I talked to, someone definitely did not want to be listed on the website because they had just had a bad breakup, and they didn't want their significant other to find them anywhere. So there is sort of the personal safety cognizant part of that one. So definitely ask people, like if you're the administrator of this and you say, hey, we got some new members in here, before just by default saying, here's their public profiles, ask them first if it's okay, because some people just don't feel comfortable with that. But there is a lot of information people can add text in here. This is all sorted depending on who's in the back end of this. All of this information, every time there's an officer changeover, it's extremely easy to edit all of this information. I'll probably be using a website that has all of this information in here, just so you can actually see kind of what a live actual website looks like. Okay. Now, does anybody have any other questions while we are up online? Okay. If you do have any questions after the fact, my email was attached to the registration of this webinar, and I know that you can always get hold of Kamal as well. If you have questions after the fact, you need some help, you just get stuck with this, please feel free to email me. I am more than happy to help out with any questions that you have, anything you're getting stuck on. I play with the FreeToastHost sites fairly often just to keep up on with the changes and see all the new stuff they're rolling out, which is really fun to see. But please just ask. I'm more than happy to help. Okay. Kamal, do you have anything to add?
Yep, I appreciate everyone who's been part of this event today, and we hope you gain value out of it. Our next webinar in this series will be on December 13th. It will be 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central, and it would be the part 2 of the FreeToastHost series, and we will cover the other side of the story on the FreeToastHost, and hope you'll be able to join and extend our journey in learning more about FreeToastHost.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I understand it's valuable time at night, and you probably all want to go back and relax. I do appreciate your time, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and a wonderful weekend. So thank you so much, everybody, and bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, and spread the word. Thank you.